There are horror movies that entertain you, and then there are horror movies that stay with you. The kind where you're sitting in the parking lot after, just processing what you just watched. Evil Dead Burn is the second kind, and I need to talk about it. Welcome back to Moody at the Movies. I'm your host, Mr. Moody, and this is the channel where I go see a movie in theaters and I immediately need to come back here and talk to you guys about it. I use my 5-scale popcorn bucket rating system, 5 being it's worth every kernel, and 1 being they burnt the popcorn. You'll catch my review at the end of this video, and without further ado, let's get right into Evil Dead Burn. Evil Dead Burn is the 6th installment in the Evil Dead franchise. Brand new cast, brand new story. The same approach that made Evil Dead Rise work so well. Directed by Sébastien Vaniček, the French filmmaker behind The Infested, one of the most underrated horror films in recent years, and personally chosen by Sam Raimi for this project. Bruce Campbell is also the executive producer, and Vaniček went into this one with one goal: to create a visceral sensory experience that punches the audience in the gut. Here's what this movie actually is. So Alice is a young widow and she just lost her husband in a car accident. After losing her husband in a car accident, Alice decides to go to his family's secluded lake house to find comfort in the grieving process with her in-laws. And on the other side of things, her husband's brother, Joseph, has been deep into his late grandfather's research, and he ends up stumbling across the Book of the Dead. So what happens is that Joseph starts reading the wrong passages in the Book of the Dead, and what starts off as a family gathering in grief, it becomes something that does not stop escalating from the second it kicks off. Such a simple setup with an absolutely unhinged execution. Okay, real quick, if you're already into this, hit that like button. It helps more people discover this channel. And without further ado, let's get into what made Evil Dead Burn work. Let's start with the gore. Evil Dead already has an insanely high standard, and Evil Dead Burn doesn't just meet it, it goes beyond it. The practical effects in this movie are absolutely extraordinary. They're gruesome, creative, and almost entirely built on set, which means your brain knows it's real and it hits completely differently than CGI could ever hit. And the camera work in this movie is something that I want to specifically call out because it's absolutely special. Vaniček plays with POV shots, bird's eye angles, and just long single takes that do not cut away from what's happening. And it feels great. You can feel Sam Raimi's DNA all over it. And it just feels like someone who studied Raimi deeply and then pushed it even further. It's almost like an evolution of Evil Dead's visual language. And on top of that, the whole cast delivered. No weak links at all. I feel like everyone stepped up and played their role to a almost perfection. The characters of this film are written to be complicated and unlikable, which actually makes the horror of this film hit even harder. And let me tell you about the grandma in this movie. She was just great. She had me laughing on the inside throughout the entirety of this movie, and that was really one of their biggest bright spots. And there's a moment in this film where I completely had to lock in. The moment I knew that this movie was not playing around was when they killed the family dog, Max. The dad ends up killing Max with the fork, and it's absolutely brutal. I didn't see it coming, not even a little bit, and the second that it happened, I instantly sat up in my seat. Because when a horror movie is willing to go there that early and that suddenly, you know it will do absolutely anything for the rest of the runtime, and it didn't hold back for a single second after that. And from that moment on, I was completely gone. Okay, I want to talk about one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and this is when Joseph's dad Edgar, and the girlfriend, they all get into a car and they're rushing Edgar to the hospital after he just got done brutally stabbing Max with the fork and killing him at the family dinner. And while they're in the car, they're both trying to catch their breath and they're thinking to themselves, it's over. But it's not. So the dad opens his eyes and he's back. He's possessed, he's a full deadite now, and he's in the back seat of the moving car that Joseph's girlfriend is driving. And there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to go. It's just 3 people trapped in a mental box. And one of them, Edgar, he's no longer human. So what happens next is the most confined, most suffocating horror sequence I've seen in theaters in years. Edgar ends up slamming the car door on the girlfriend's hand, ends up stabbing her in the neck multiple times, and it just keeps escalating and escalating. And Joseph, he has a gun, and he ends up pulling it out, but he hesitates to shoot. With his girlfriend's life on the line, and him taking too long, the dad takes the headrest of the car seat and ends up driving it through her skull, which kills her upon impact. And it got to a point in this car scene where it lasted so long where you thought, okay, maybe she somehow makes it out of here alive because she's taking such a beating and she's still not dead. But then once you picked up that headrest and drove it through her skull, you're like, yeah, it's over. And that's where Evil Dead absolutely feels at its best. It's still making me think of this scene days after seeing the movie. That's how great it was. Now, the car scene shocked me, but for me personally, the most disturbing moment in this whole movie was actually the killing of the dog. Edgar killing Max with the fork, it's not a quick moment and it's not cut away from. You watch the entire thing and there's something about a family member doing something that horrific to an innocent animal in a way that's slow and deliberate. It just hits somewhere deeper than pure gore, and it disturbs you emotionally before your brain even has time to process what you're watching. The best Evil Dead movies have always found the thing that gets you to somewhere unexpected. That scene found it. I was not prepared for that scene at all. Another part of this movie that I thought was disturbing and kind of weird was when the mom went up to the room and the grandma is possessed at this time as well. And then you have Edgar, the dad. He's currently trapped outside the house. So he ends up scaling the outside of the house and climbing up to the bedroom window where the mom is currently trying to put the grandma to sleep. So the mom walks around, she tries to go out the room, and the grandma ends up standing up on the bed and she's possessed at this point. The possessed grandma calls the mom by her name, which she hasn't called her that in years. Quick note, I think the grandma has dementia, which is why she's forgetful throughout the entirety of this movie. So the grandma calling the mom by her real name hit a soft spot in the mom's heart, and Edgar knocking on the window while he's possessed, the mom just felt like she had her family back again. And that whole scene with the mom making out with the bloody Edgar, he has blood and scars all over his face. It's just kind of disturbing, and that was kind of gross, but that's another disturbing moment in this movie. But I thought it was a good scene overall. Now let's get into the honest part, because that's what this channel's for, and I want to talk about some of the things that struggled in this movie. The first act of this movie is slow, and there's a stretch early on where it feels a little formulaic and characters are being set up, the situation not fully getting ignited yet. And if you're feeling that in the first 20 minutes, stay with it, because once things get going, they don't stop. I kind of wish they got into it a little bit sooner, because those first 20 minutes of the movie, it will test your patience. But once you're able to get through those first 20 minutes of this film, it's just chaos after chaos after chaos, and it just keeps on escalating and it does not stop. And that just makes it for a great film, great thriller all throughout. We have now had 3 back-to-back Evil Dead movies that follow a very similar formula. The 2013 remake, Evil Dead Rise, and now Evil Dead Burn. And while Burn is excellent, you can start to feel the franchise approaching a ceiling. Sam Raimi kept this franchise alive for decades by being willing to completely shift the tone. Evil Dead Wrath in 2028 is going to need to do something genuinely different, because it's only a matter of time before audiences start to get bored of it. But Evil Dead Burn was a great installment, and I really hope they can build upon that. I would say Evil Dead Burn is on the same level as Evil Dead Rise, maybe just a little bit more, but both are still pretty good movies in my opinion. And at the end of this movie, you are hit with 2 post-credit scenes, and both of them matter, so I would not leave because they matter for the future of the Evil Dead franchise. The first scene spreads the curse, and it signals that whatever was unleashed in this movie is far from contained. The second brings back Ellie from Evil Dead Rise, which was a personal favorite of mine. I absolutely love that character, so I'm really excited to see that in Evil Dead Wrath in 2028. But with them confirming that Ellie is back, it absolutely confirms that these 2 films exist in the same connected universe. And Evil Dead Wrath is already in development for 2028, and this franchise is nowhere near finished, and I'm excited for the future of this franchise. And based on what Burn just delivered, I genuinely cannot wait to see what comes next. Now, before I get into the final rating, if you've been enjoying this breakdown, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel out, and I post every single time something new in theaters comes out. Now let's get into the final verdict. Evil Dead Burn is the real deal. Gore that goes beyond franchise standards, camera work that genuinely evolves the visual language of Evil Dead, a full cast with no weak links, characters written with enough complexity that you're invested before it all falls apart, humor that is perfectly timed, especially that grandma, a car scene that is one of the most audacious horror sequences I've seen in years, and 2 post-credit scenes that connect the universe and set up what's coming next for the future of this franchise. This movie has everything Evil Dead is supposed to be. My rating for this movie is 4 out of 5 popcorn buckets. Grab the large, go to the theater right now to watch this. You don't need to wait for this to hit streaming services. I think that Evil Dead fans are going to love this movie, and I think even if you've never seen an Evil Dead movie before, I think this is a perfect place for you to start and get into the franchise. That was my honest reaction on Evil Dead Burns, and I want to hear from you guys. I read every single comment, so leave comments below on if you enjoyed the movie, if you agreed with some of the takes I had, or if you even disagreed with some of the takes that I had. And if you're new here and you like this style of a review, honest and no fluff, just my real raw reaction, hit subscribe, and I'll see you at the movies.